The way we think about time is learned. Over eons, different cultures and peoples have held different beliefs about the nature of time. Western historical thought is based on certain assumptions about the nature of time. When we make a timeline of historical events, we create a graphic representation of how we in Western secular society think about time. We link units of time with events. We make a sequence that suggests a past, present, and future. The direction says that time and history proceed in a line and not in a circle. Portrayed in a line, events are unique in history and do not repeat themselves in the exact ways. History incorporates change. Sequences in a timeline where some events happen before others also suggest the possibility of cause and effect. They suggest that events exist in relationship to one another in a context. Timelines can suggest turning points in time, linear trends, and progressions, whether or not these in fact exist. Thus, making a timeline allows one to plot events in a graphic way, to see possible relationships, to help memory, and to grasp sequence. In the process, culling from the many possible dates sharpens one's appreciation for the dates necessarily excluded. So let's plot history on a line. Step 1. Firstly, you need a set of historical data, and it's also best to have this data in chronological order. So you need to decide what your timeline is going to be about. Is it going to be about personal events, big political events, events related to a geographic area, randomly chosen events, and so on? And you also need to choose which events to exclude as well. Then, make a list of the events that you wish to put on your timeline. Research and note the specific dates when the events that you wish to include occurred. It is a good idea to note your sources too, so that you can return later and verify the dates, if necessary. List the events in chronological order, like I said before, a sequence of earliest to latest. What are the earliest and latest dates that you wish to include? Choose the period of time that your timeline will cover, being sure to include your earliest and latest dates. This is important. It needs to be from earliest to latest. You can either rule your line horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Then, step 3, calculate the scale for the timeline in figures such as decades, centuries, or even millennia. Some timelines may be representing events over a short period of time, such as a month or even a single year. Sometimes there may be a huge gap between one event and the other events. It will be necessary to have a larger break in the timeline to represent this larger time period. Using the chronological list that you had before of all your events and dates, figure out where they would fall on your timeline. How will you mark and label them? For instance, you could write on the timeline, attach coloured labels, or make a code that refers back to your chronological events. Of course, step 4, don't forget to give your timeline a title and represent your scale where it's required. Sometimes it's hard to plot all the events without crowding the line. Try to be as neat as possible, and as long as you're representing gaps of time, I will accept close enough. So as you can see, 1215 and 1217 are quite close together, but you've got a bigger gap between the next one, which is in 1337, and that's the 100 Years' War. So while the 2 years kind of looks like it's a little bit more than 2 years, it was kind of hard to crowd it in, so I had to make it a little bit bigger. So that's why I'm saying close enough will be good enough.